Hey, y'all, welcome to Breaking Work. This is a dedicated space where we break down that default view we all have of work and reimagine and redesign what it could be for us. To do that, I like to bring in guests who have carved their own paths, taken control of their work lives, and now make a living on their own terms. Scott Raven had a great run as an executive with several brand name Fortune 500 companies. He climbed the ladder and all was going great. Well, until he hit burnout and had a little health scare. Scott made the leap and transformed his career into owning Corvus Empowerment Solutions, where he helps family-oriented professionals transform from overwhelmed achievers, I'm sure you all listening can resonate with that, into integrated legacy builders. But it wasn't always smooth sailing. He took his lumps along the way. So let's get into the nitty-gritty together with Scott Raven. Scott, are you ready to break some work today?
Let's go, boss.
All right. I've been really excited to talk to you. Thank you for your patience in rescheduling and
No worries.
me dealing with all the, all of the kids stuff.
No worries. Hey, I've got the kid stuff too. So you're preaching to the choir.
Awesome. So I want to start here, which is a really kind of central tenet for me as well. You talk about how work-life balance is a myth.
Yes.
Can you talk to us? I want to just start right there. Talk to us a little bit about what you mean by that.
Work-life balance being a myth. So the moment that anything is in absolutely perfect balance in this world, I don't care what you're talking about, wait 5 minutes, it's bound to change. Yeah. Why? Because you can't possibly control everything which is going on around you. And it's foolish for us to think that that is something that can be sustained as an objective in our life. We always are taking action because something needs to be addressed in our life. We go to the gym because we need to improve our health. We take our kids to soccer because we want them to have enriching lives. We get the project out on time because we want to be in good with the boss and we want to make the company money. There's always something where there's an action where we're addressing something in order to bring our lives into harmony. Harmony is a lot more achievable than balance because harmony does not require perfection. Harmony simply requires us to have this feeling that all the different roles that we play in life are coexisting relatively smoothly. And in order for us to achieve harmony, that's where the concept of work-life integration comes in. Integration is the action which goes along with harmony that can truly bring us fulfilled lives.
Yeah, I resonate a lot with that. I mean, I think about, like, if you think about a scale or like a teeter-totter, right? And you were trying to balance the teeter-totter. Let's just say work is on one side, life is on the other side. If something drags you down with work, you have to do something else to counterbalance that.
That's right.
Instead of bringing things together and working on one focal point. And anybody who's, gotten a little off balance, that, like, you can overcorrect the other way and go off balance the other way. And so it's a really difficult thing to do mentally. And
yes.
So when you talk about integration, to me, this is a big light bulb thing that some of us realize as we get older and some of us don't. I'm wondering how you came to that realization.
So there was a person who I worked with on a completely different topic. And this was about improving my speaking and my communication. And she taught me you have yourself in the center, so you can picture yourself in the center of a diagram. The spokes right around you, immediately off of you, are all the different roles that you play. So I am a human. I am a father. I am a husband. I am a business owner. I am a friend, etc. Right? And then with each of those, that there are certain traits or characteristics that you bring to each and every role. And those traits may not be the same for each role that you play. So, for example, when I am a business professional, I am going to make sure that I am accountable to what we said we were going to deliver. Versus when I am a father, I might be much more supportive, particularly if one of my kids has a bad day. All of these traits have to flow in a manner such that you're using the right trait at the right time in the right role. And when I learned that from a pure communication standpoint, in terms of how do I communicate more effectively, the light bulb went off and said, well, wait a minute. That's exactly the same in terms of your life's actions. Your life's actions are a series of actions you take based on the role and the situation that you are in, and what part of your integrated life are you looking to address at any one particular time. So that, for me, was where the light bulb of work-life integration came in.
So is the goal of work-life integration, or just use the one word integration, is the goal to not be compartmentalized so much so that you are wearing different masks in different scenarios and you're just sort of able to bring forth more of your authentic self? Is that the goal?
It is. And the reason why that's the goal is quite simply, it reduces your cognitive load.
Yes.
Think about it. If you have to constantly flip back and forth between this mask here and that mask there and this mask in the other place, etc., right? There's a certain part of your subconscious which is going batshit crazy, and you're wasting energy. And energy is one of your most precious assets on this planet. So why do that versus just being your consistent, authentic self and trying to remain in your flow state as much as possible so you maximize the return on the energy efforts that you put out into the universe?
So I definitely experienced this when I was in corporate roles and in startups where I was working with teams. I mean, it's funny how, I'm a college educated white male. I speak decently well. And I felt like I wasn't able to be myself. I had to couch my language. I had to be very careful of what I said when I said it, all of those types of things. And that was a really difficult thing for me.
Right.
And so I can't imagine how a lot of other people feel. So what, because the norm is to go to work, put your work hat on, be a team player, play the politics, all of that kind of stuff. What are we afraid of? Like, why are we resistant oftentimes to bringing more of our authentic self into the workplace?
In short, risk. And particularly for a lot of the people who are listening to these conversations and others, hey, I get it. You have put tons and tons of effort and time and sweat equity to get to where you are in your career. And there's much to risk in terms of losing that which you have accomplished, for lack of a better term, or that which you may perceive as a part of your identity, that title, that role, that responsibility, the number of team members that you lead, all that stuff, right? But here's the trick, and particularly for those people who work in a corporate role, you got to understand that that power is rented. You don't own that power. The company that you work for owns that power, and they're letting you rent it. You, from a standpoint of your identity and your empowerment, are the skills and the ability to get things done under any situation with the right tribe of people around you. And that's going to change over time. I believe in going after greatness, and I'm a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. So Nick Sirianni, who is our head coach, has this phrase. It's actually engraved in the rings that are the Super Bowl rings from this past year. You cannot be great without the greatness of others. The others who are going to drive your greatness are going to change over time as you go through seasons of life and as you go through different roles, responsibilities, etc. It's just going to happen. That's the reasons why we talk about reasons, seasons, and lifetimes when it comes to people. But your underlying greatness has to be core to you, because that's what's going to attract the greatness of others to you to make those accomplishments.
Yeah, you have to have that foundation inside of you that you believe in and that you can adjust and pivot in any situation. I mean, we're seeing it. It's just the norm now. People have multiple careers, multiple different companies, all of that kind of stuff. And that understanding that core value helps you become much more nimble and flexible, right, and reach higher rungs of achievement as well when you know that and when you harness that. So I think about, like, in your diagram with you, yes, at the center and spokes, it's interesting that, one of those spokes is obviously like sort of your work identity. And right, so many of us morph that into our only identity, which is completely sort of backwards. So what I wanted to ask you is, where were you in your career with this communications coach? Like, give me a time frame, or, early, middle, late stage career, because I have a couple follow-up questions.
Sure. Well, this particular communications coach I did not engage with until recently, a couple of years ago. So let me back up in terms of setting the stage for how I got there.
Yeah.
So like you said, I was doing what we affectionately call here the Atlanta rotation, where you go from large company to large company, higher title, higher pay, higher responsibility, all the trappings of chasing after the brass ring, until my position was eliminated in a reduction in force in 2017. And a lot of people, men in particular, put their work as a major component of their identity. So much so, and this is particularly for men, that they will focus on work first, then their family, and then themselves, when in truth it should be the exact reverse. Because that was my orientation at that time, and because I had a huge gaping hole and I didn't know who the heck I was, right? I fell into a very deep depression, worsened by alcoholism, and one night landed myself in the hospital with severe chest pains, back pains, head pains, and a blood pressure of 180 over 110. Fortunately for me, it was just acute anxiety disorder that was the root cause, nothing more. And something that I was able to work on over the course of 6 months in order to get under control. You never fully get rid of it, but get under control. Let's fast forward to 2023. Now, 2023, after another trip into a corporate position and having that position eliminated in reduction in force, I was then coming off my learnings of how not to break work in corporate. Mm-hmm. Okay? And this may be something that is a little bit strange for this listening audience, but hopefully I can teach you how not to do it, right?
Yeah.
Here's how not to do it. How not to do it is to run away from that which you don't want. Because that's exactly what I did. I ran away from corporate because I did not want it. And so there's an opportunity that presented itself for me to open up a couple of franchise locations for an emerging martial arts franchisor here in the Atlanta area. It looked good on paper. It looked like I would be able to not only have financial freedom from it, but also leave a community impact. And so I pursued it. Yes, there were a lot of external forces which were working against me, such as COVID. Don't get me wrong, right? But what I did and why I failed at that is I picked a horse where I was completely out of flow alignment. And because I had to play more operator of that business versus owner of that business, I was basically trying to succeed through sheer willpower. And willpower has a shelf life. So, to bring it back, when I got to that communications coach, right? What was I looking to do at that time? What was I looking to learn at that time? How to tell my story. And how to tell the whole story and the authentic story. And in order to do that, I had to be able to do it across all the roles which comprised me, my integrated self.
Love it. That's a great overview, bringing it all the way into why integration matters. And so I have I want to pick this journey apart a little bit.
Sure.
2017, reduction in force.
Yep.
Did that blindside you? Were you expecting that?
No, yeah. Didn't blindside me from the standpoint that there was a lot of political turmoil, and unfortunately, the relationships between myself and my boss had deteriorated.
So you saw some signs, things
Yep.
were maybe in the works.
Yep. If anything, having my position eliminated was at first cathartic, right? But then after the relief went away, the emptiness presented itself.
Right. So, you're free to share what you want here, but I just want to dig into that a little bit. I mean, you sort of knew something was coming. It hits. All right, the decision's actually made. Like having a decision, usually by someone else actually making that decision. All right, you feel good for a little while. What were the next steps? Obviously, you went into a depression and had some issues to deal with. But like, what were you thinking at that point? Get another job?
So at that time, I was actually thinking that I wanted to try to strike out on my own, or at least be able to position myself as a hired gun to be able to help others with the professional situations that they were dealing with. Because that's really what I wanted to do, right? I didn't want to be the person who was the owner of a particular business division, right? I wanted to be that helper that it helped achieve that person's dreams. That's where I was at that point, right? But where I struggled, and this is why when I went into 2023, I knew that communications coach was something that I was going to have to invest in, was I couldn't articulate my unique value proposition.
Okay.
Why should you care about me? Why am I one of one? What do I bring to the table? And because I couldn't communicate that unique value proposition, I just keep hitting my head against a brick wall every single time. And I wasn't ready for the failures from that, because up until that, before the reduction in force, I had generally known success. Right? So for the people who are thinking about making this leap, right? I'm just going to be authentic. I'm going to be real, right? You are going to go through a period where you may have to fail a little bit. But that's okay. Because if you remember back in childhood when you first learned how to ride a bike, did you ride that bike perfectly the first time? If you did, congratulations. But if you're like me, you've got a few scraped knees to prove that no, you didn't do it right the first time. And that was okay because you eventually figured it out. Well, that's kind of what a journey towards a life away from corporate looks like. You are going to scrape your knees, and it is going to hurt from time to time. I'm not going to lie. But the rewards of being able to do something yourself as your authentic self are phenomenal. You just got to have the grit to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I think one of the most basic human needs that we have, and maybe I need to come up with a really good word for it, but is just like this. We want to work. We actually want to be valuable. When we say, oh, I would just love to be printing passive money and laying on a beach, like, no, you actually don't. So this idea of trying to figure out what you really do want and what you really don't want, and to you, not just run from something. And I always use the question with my coaching clients: what are you running from, and what are you running towards? Because when we understand that, then we can diagnose paths and do a lot of different things there.
Right.
But we got to get to the root of it.
Right.
And I think your integration piece is like, if you can integrate more of your authentic self in a job, in a corporate environment, you're going to be much better off.
Yes.
And it's almost a prerequisite if you want to do something outside of it, because most people make the mistake that you did running from corporate. I got to get out of here. So anything out of corporate, buy a business, a franchise, and anything like that is going to be the solution.
Yep.
And what you're not looking at is all of the other things that you have to do on a daily basis that will suck your energy, drain your life. And so understanding who you are at your foundation first really seems to matter.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. I mean, one of the positions that we have at Corvus is our job is not to optimize the accidental prison that you've trapped yourself in. It is to design and architect your pathway to freedom. And in my case, I could say unequivocally, when I made that jump into my first phase of the martial arts franchise, I just traded one prison for another. Mm-hmm. I traded logos, but the prison was more or less the same. I didn't change anything in terms of the underlying dynamics of why was I feeling trapped? Why was I feeling operationally overwhelmed? Why was I feeling that I was lacking freedom in terms of my professional endeavors? And now, as I've progressed and formed Corvus, one thing has struck out at me in terms of why highs, lows, good days, bad days, ugly days, everything. Why am I so much happier in my pursuit of freedom now? It's because I'm looking at it from a standpoint of the impact I can create in myself and others versus the output. So to go back to your analogy of, hey, if all you do is print money but you do nothing else, that's not necessarily a fulfilling life. Right. I agree. Now, money is definitely a required tool in life, but that's all it is. It's a tool. It's a tool by which it can empower you to go out and do other things which drive impact. And impact drives legacy at the end of the day. So that's what we're at for Corvus. We're after helping people drive the impact that they were originally seeking in what they chose. And that will drive their freedom.
Yeah. How do you define freedom? Again, most people think about do what I want when I want, and lay on a beach, and print money while I sleep, that kind of thing. But how do you define it?
Well, I agree with the premise, which is the ability to do what you want when you want, but also why you want at the end of the day, right? Having the strong why behind your thoughts, actions, behaviors, decisions is also critically important. And there's something that we forget in terms of the whole, I'm going to lay on the beach every single day and I'm going to have a wonderful tan. That thought of, that's the definition of freedom, right? In order for that to have value, we have to understand its exact opposite. So call it rainy day in Seattle thought, okay? You have to be able to have bad in order to appreciate good. You
Hmm.
have to be able to have sick in order to appreciate health. All of the duality of life. If you have only one, over time, it lacks value. It
Yes.
lacks value because it's not something that is novel and you no longer have anything to compare it against, if you will, right? So it is the richness of experiences that I've defined as one of the prerequisites to freedom.
Yeah, the why is so important. I mean, again, if we take the premise that we actually derive intrinsic value from working, producing something,
Mhm.
then we have to have a why to do that. And
Yes.
I always tell people like I'm not trying to make entrepreneurs into retirees. I'm trying to build business owners that never actually want to retire because they've built
Hmm.
something that they care about, that they love, that they can scale up or down depending on their life season, but they never want to stop. And I think
Hmm.
that's the point where you get like you can actually I believe you can do that inside of a corporate job. I really do. I think you can do that, have that type of feeling. It's more
Yes.
prevalent. It's more prevalent when you
You could
create
you could
something.
certainly have that feeling inside of a corporate job. And let me be clear, for a lot of people, it may actually be better to pursue that definition of freedom inside a corporation where it absolves you of a good amount of risk that's
Yeah.
associated with owning your own business. I'm not, there's definitely that argument to it. But also understand the other argument, which is that position, role, identity has been created by that company.
Right.
And that the company has the power to change its mind if it chooses.
Right. Yeah. So, what did you obviously learned something from the martial arts side of things to what you're doing now,
Right.
about integration and about you and how you
Right.
deliver value.
Right.
But what was it? Can you articulate what it was, the difference? Obviously, you talked about being the operator versus the owner, but was there a discovery about Scott at his core that really wanted to do something else? How did you arrive there? That type of thing.
So, really, if I had to surmise some of the key learnings in that martial arts experience, it was twofold, right? I talked about this concept of being more of an operator than an owner for a good amount of it because there was a lot of focus in terms of the systems to operate that business, and that I put so much of my focus there that not only was I not the best equipped in terms of executing those systems to an appropriate level, right? But it also didn't allow me one of the six dimensions of freedom that I consider, which is vision and being able to see a broader picture and be able to say, okay, I see where we are in the day, the here and now, but I also see where we have to get to and what are the things that I need to start queuing up in order to get us there, right? So at first, I wasn't allowing myself the opportunity to really set that. And then when I tried to make the shift from being more operator specific to owner specific, I realized that as a owner that I couldn't get away enough from being an operator in order for that business to truly be successful. And so because I realized that I was not the right person in order to be able to bring that all together, that's when I made the decision to leave.
For someone who's maybe thinking about getting into a franchise or buying a business or something like that, how could they figure that out before the mistake?
So here's the first things first, right? You have to understand the concept of these business systems that are being presented to you, okay? One of the keys to these business systems is that they are highly effective for people who have the right inherent strengths to operate those systems. So one of the biggest things before you make that leap is know yourself. Know what your strengths are. Know the types of things where you are naturally energized and you're just jamming. And you know that, nothing's going to stop you, right? And then put that lens on whatever you are considering and say, can I take my knowledge of when I'm in flow state to this business situation and systems, and do the two line up? And if the two line up, you're probably going to be more successful at it. But if you see a dissonance between the two, that's probably a flag to say, wait a minute, in order for me to be successful in this venture, I'm going to have to be somebody that I'm fundamentally not. And yeah, maybe I can grow, maybe I can evolve, right? But that's something that's going to be a hurdle. And is that something where maybe my efforts are better served looking at an alternative?
So to translate that, like you use and coach the Strengths Finder system, right?
I do.
So is that an area where you feel like a step one for people?
I do. You know what? I actually consider it to be a step two, right?
Okay.
So
What's step one?
step one for me is understanding in which dimension of your pursuit of freedom are you getting the most blockage. So just break down the 6 dimensions that I believe in. Time sovereignty. Do you control your schedule or does it control you?
Yeah.
Decision liberation. Do you have the appropriate definitions in place such that decisions are approved without bottlenecks, they're strategically delegated, you don't feel like you have to have all of the cognitive load on your shoulders? Operational excellence. Can what you have built, whether that be your team in a corporate environment or your business and entrepreneurial environments, can it thrive without your constant presence? Can you take that 2-week vacation and be able to come back and everything is still jamming? Visionary capability. Do you have the time to step away from working in your business to be able to work on your business and set the future direction for where you want to be? And this applies to corporate people as well. Do you have the time to step away from being tactically in your role to be able to set what you want the role and the function to evolve to over time? Sustainable success. Do you have the ability to scale this without having to significantly increase your effort? As an example, if you're being asked to double the output of your current function at work, but the only way to double the outcome of your function at work is to double your effort, that's not scalable. That's the recipe for burnout, right? And then finally, personal freedom. Are you able to take work as an integrated part of your life and be able to apply to what matters most to you at the end of the day? So those are the 6 dimensions, and that will tell you where you are being blocked from your pursuit of freedom. Clifton's strengths. Sorry.
You used a word that I absolutely love, and I honest to God haven't heard anybody else use it. Time sovereignty.
Yes.
So I'm actually writing a book on it right now because I think that it's a mentality more than anything first, and that precedes any other type of freedom that you want to unlock in your life. Like most people think monetary, financial freedom first, then I have time freedom. And it's the opposite. You have to be able to control your time to invest it in the right things to build financial freedom and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that.
There's a wonderful gentleman out there by the name of Andrew Hartman. He heads up a company called Time Boss. URL is timeboss.us. And I actually had him on my podcast recently. And he had this phenomenal piece of wisdom, which is most people treat time like credit, and that they're very willing to swipe their card, figuring they'll pay it back at some point, and then they realize that the balance comes due and they can't, and then they got to pay all the interest and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
He said if people can just switch that to time is like cash, and that you should spend your time as if you have a fixed budget, you're going to make a lot more critical decisions in terms of how you spend your time and your energy, because you're not willing to let that $20 bill go out and just say, oh, well, I wasted it, right? You're not going to do that if it's cash, or if you think about it as cash, if you will, right? So to your point in terms of time sovereignty, I think a lot of us in this world treat our time in our work, with our companies, etc., as almost a source of credit in terms of trying to legitimately be good and do good by others, because we want to have good impact and relationships with the people that we work with. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's a great thing to have, but not when you get overextended. Yeah. Not when you are so busy filling up other people's cups that your cup is empty.
Yeah, makes total sense. Yep. Have to do the work to own your time, understand where to direct it, and protect it before any other change is going to happen. It's
That's
just
correct.
It's simple math, basically.
That is correct. But
yeah, okay.
I'll quickly close on the Clifton strengths, so I know that you started this, right? If understanding the 6 dimensions in terms of which dimensions need the most addressing is the where to get to freedom, Clifton's strengths gives you insights into the hows. What is with your internal makeup that may be driving where those bottlenecks are occurring? Now, it's not scientifically correlated. Don't get me wrong, right? I don't want to come out and say, oh, this has been scientifically proven, right? But it's certainly going to give you areas to examine. And through that examination and your own self-knowledge, you'll be able to say, oh, because I have these as my inherent strengths, which means I'll go to them more regularly, they're easier for me to do. But because those strengths have these particular watchouts, and these watchouts are leading to these conditions in terms of why am I working 65 hours a week? Why do I feel like I have to make every single decision? Why do I feel like the team cannot operate independently of me, right? That you then begin to say, okay, how do I adjust how I use what I'm naturally good at in order to not have those bottlenecks be as prevalent in what I do?
Yeah. Amen. That's spot on. Stop thinking about all of the holes you got to plug and all of your deficiencies, and start to leverage your strengths and overlay your strengths with the right opportunities. Mm-hmm. And you're gonna have more impact. You're gonna feel a lot better. So amen to that.
Yes. And particularly if you're a team leader, right?
Right.
Know what strengths are harder for you. Everybody has strength in every single discipline. It's just some strengths are more natural than others, right? You do not have to be the best at everything. You need to have a team that collectively is great across a lot of different things. So who are those people who are the natural complements that you need to bring on?
So we've tiptoed a little bit into how you work and everything, but I want to go a little deeper. What was the insight about yourself that kind of led you to starting Corvus? And maybe you didn't do it exactly as your process describes now, but like if you can think back or look back at like your strengths and overlapping with, right opportunities, what was the insight or the impetus?
Well, Corvus actually was not born when I left the martial arts franchise opportunity, right? In fact, the first iteration of what I wanted to bring to market was a concept called Be Loyal to You, where the underlying premise is you need to be loyal to yourself in order to drive your own life's success, which I found as I was getting feedback on that I was attracting people who wanted the neighborhood bartender, that they had problems in their life, they needed somebody to talk to. Did they want to do anything about it? No. Did they want to pay anything? No, right? And I'm not knocking that. Sometimes you just need that friendly ear, don't get me wrong, right? But I knew that I wanted something that was much more actionable in nature. And so from that and being able to apply iteration after iteration after iteration, I eventually landed on Corvus and those 6 dimensions because I think particularly for men, and I'm not excluding women when I say this, right? It's just that I speak guy, right? That's all I'm saying, right? What you do has a huge impact on how you feel about yourself at the end of the day, right? There's a study that came out, actually a number of studies, where anywhere between 1 in 6 and 1 in 3 adult men confided they have no true friends, or they feel like they have no true friends. And I don't think that that is because of lack of trying. I think it's because of lack of prioritization and focus, because they have so much of a, call it a hunter mentality, if you will, right? That what they do is the biggest part of how they are going to be defined at the end of the day. That may be true, but you're going to be defined, like I said, much more by the impact that you create versus the output that you produce. And I think that that's where a lot of people get it wrong, that we're so output driven in terms of what we strive for. And make no mistake, output is important, right? Money is an output and money is important. Don't get me wrong, right? But impact is what's memorable.
Right.
Impact is where the stories are told. Impact is where the relationships are created. And I think that that's where people sometimes are a little bit misguided in terms of what they want the what they want their work to be about.
Right. So what does Corvus mean?
Corvus actually is a scientific genus name for the part where ravens, crows, and other like birds live on the scientific genus tree. And given my last name, Raven, it's a nice little play. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I was always wondering how you came up with that. It's really, really interesting.
Yep.
Okay, so I want to get in. So you primarily work with business owners. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's correct. Small to mid-sized business owners, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we're talking about the same issues and problems, right? Burnout, overwhelm, chasing the wrong goals, not having integration in a corporate setting, and the same with business owners. So talk to me about how you, it can feel very chaotic.
It can.
This feeling, right? So talk to me a little bit about how your program works and how you guide people through. I think you have a Empower framework. You have a lot of frameworks.
I do. But the thing is that you have your frameworks in life, but then particularly for the people who go through my VIP experience, the Liberation Blueprint, right? That it's got to be customized to their personal experience in terms of what they're going through, right? So my Liberation Blueprint, which is my VIP program, has 4 distinct phases: discovery, design, implementation, and refinement. And those 4 phases are meant to take a look at an overall situation for an owner, for a team, etc., across those 6 dimensions that we talked about, so that we're not just going in and saying, all right, what are the things that need to be fixed, right? Because that's just triaging what's there. You're optimizing the existing prison. That's not going to change long term what is the feeling in terms of work to impact to freedom. You have to design the new neural pathways. You have to architect the different systems and the different ways of doing things. And then, quite frankly, the biggest part is doing the reps, right? I mean, I could take you to the gym and I could show you the perfect form for a bench press, but until you've done it 100 times, you're not going to have the muscle memory to really say, hey, I got this, for lack of a better term. And there's so many people who get these solutions or quick fixes, etc., right? And maybe they try it once, it doesn't work, and like, that failed, I'm not going to do it again. No, that's not the point. The point is you got to do it enough times in order to be able to gain a mastery of this. There was an expression that we had back when I was in the martial arts industry: fear the man who has practiced the same kick 10,000 times versus the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks one time.
Yeah. It's a Bruce Lee quote, I believe.
I believe so. You are correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. So when you're talking about designing, you have a business owner, they have a lot of business systems, they're overwhelmed, they're doing too much operations. I think I know the answer to this, but are you really going in there and optimizing their physical systems, or is it more about the owner, the mentality, the mindset to make the changes?
It all starts with the mentality and the mindset first, right? I mean, your folks who are in the corporate environment now, I guarantee you every single one of them has the horror story of this technical ERP system that was brought in order to revolutionize the way that the company did business and streamline operations, etc., right? And that it ended up customized to high hell because people would not get off the fact that they didn't want to change the way they did things.
Right.
They wanted to adapt the technology to how they had done things in the past, which that was really the breaking point, right? The funny thing about the mind is that when you construct the neural pathway in the mind, you can never get rid of it. What you can do is you construct new neural pathways to work around it so that you don't access that part of your brain or that pathway in the future. And so that's what this design phase is all about. It's not trying to take what you've done and do the tweaks. It's saying, let's go back to blank slate. And let's say, given what we've learned from the way that we did things, if we had to do it over again, what would we do differently? How would we see the world differently? How would we put those opportunities in place that, quite frankly, we can't pursue because we're constrained and bottlenecked by something else? That's how you design the systems that you need for the results and the impact that you want.
What are maybe the top 1 or 2 reasons somebody comes to you? How do they articulate it?
They would articulate it in terms of, I'm tired of making all of the major decisions. I don't know why I've got these people who are working for me and that I felt like they would take more ownership, but they're looking to me I don't know if it's because they're afraid, or I don't know if it's because they're just not knowledgeable enough, right? And that then I turn that around and I say, well, when this happens, are you working with them to be able to empower them to make the decision on their own? Or are you just giving them a spoon feed at answer and you're training them that they can just come to you and get an answer? And often it's door number two, right? So that's the type of situation that
Yeah.
often comes up in terms of, you know, if you create an underlying culture where everybody expects you're going to have the answer anyway, they're probably not going to want to come up with the answer because they know that you'll do it. So that's one example.
Yeah. So I can just see like a hard charging entrepreneur coming to you and saying, I got the wrong people, or, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm wondering, how do you, so framing it, what do you do? How do you build the culture? Are you supporting, how do you get them to buy into this mindset shift? Like it's actually not anything out there. It's here. Because I do think this is the root of, most people don't want to confront this piece.
Right.
And this is a challenge I see all the time in my work as well. It's like, it's actually the two yous fighting inside of yourself, and you have to, you know, you have to change your mindset and your approach before anything else will change. So I'm curious as to how you sort of get them to buy into that.
Well, in a lot of respects, as I dig down into the core of the apple, right? What I end up finding is lack of trust.
Okay.
And when I say lack of trust, it's because for a lot of these entrepreneurs and these founders, where what they have is their baby, and that they are unwilling to let the baby grow up in certain respects, to allow it to develop into the beautiful, mature entity that it was supposed to be, that it ends up hampering that baby's growth at the end of the day. And I get it, right? They started whatever they've got today as a fledgling concept, right? And that it can be very hard to let the reins go. But the more that you hold on tight, the more that you're going to prevent not only your company's growth, but your own growth, because then you are spending your energy and having the opportunity cost of what else you could have been doing, whether that be expanding your business, whether that be go on that European vacation that you always wanted to go on, whatever that is, right? That's the opportunity cost that you're trading off, right? And so one of the biggest things that I do with entrepreneurs out of the gate when I start with them is to get an understanding of what's the stop list. Before we start thinking about, right, what do we need to start, what do we need to prove, etc., what is the stop list?
Yeah.
Because that's the list of energy vampires that are currently in their day. And they have to determine, can I delegate that to somebody? Can I defer that to a later time? Is that just something that needs to be deleted because it's serving me no good, right? Get to the point that you're freeing up your time and your energy first. So you have some capacity to say, now that I have some capacity, now what do I want to go focus on?
Yeah. The not to do list. It's so effective because the key to simple systems is removing shit. So it's a great frame.
I mean, the old axiom, simple scales, complex fails.
Yeah, exactly.
It does. It's a truism,
Yep. Talk to me about like your ideal entrepreneur client, right? Like the type of person in business that you really have success helping, and maybe the types that you don't necessarily aren't a great fit.
So, I tend to focus on professional service orientation, right? So your financial services, those type of things of the world, right? I do have two slants in terms of those that are more early stage, pre-revenue or small revenue, where they can't make the financial investment, but they can do the investment of their own time and energy. And we do that through online coursework, etc. To the more established ones where I come in and that I am driving the facilitation of this change management through the team in a SOW type of engagement, right? So I have the two different variants. But I tell you the one thing that I always listen for when I'm talking with somebody and I'm saying, is this going to be successful or not? I listen for humility and I listen for integrity. Because if I don't hear humility or integrity, then I'll have one of two questions in mind. If I present a new way of thinking, are you going to be able to say, I can be humble enough to say, I never thought about it that way. And then, if we actually go do something, are you going to have the integrity to say, whatever the outcome is, I own this. Not anybody else. I own this. And I also own the responsibility and accountability of myself in order to improve that over time.
Excellent. I'm going to wrap up with a few rapid fire questions, but before I do that,
Sure.
Right now, 2025, what's the date? We're in July 2025. What you defined freedom before, but like, how do you define it for yourself? What's it like for you to live your dream and live in that freedom, pursuing what you want to do and the why behind what you do?
Well, I'll take today as an example, right? We're 2 weeks away from when my kids go back to school, right? I have the ability to be here with you doing this episode, right? As soon as I get done here, I'll have a little bit of a mini break and I'll probably go up and play video games with my daughter before I get back to work a little bit later on, right? When the school year starts up, I'll have client engagements here and there, right? But I'll also have the ability to head out to the baseball diamond to see my son play baseball as he's a rising high schooler, and it'll be great to see him play some high school ball. I have the ability to have fixed scheduled gym time at 11 a.m. every morning so that I have that consistency in my routine, right? And I have the ability to have those experiences with my wife and family that really matter to us. My wife and I always talk about the number one goal for us is to be able to retire well, which retire well, for lack of a better term, just means be able to do what we want on our own terms. To your point, it doesn't mean stop working. It just means do what you want on your own terms, right? And we love to travel and we love great food. So, just this past month, right, we were up in coastal Maine, enjoying great New England weather, eating lobster, all that good stuff. And, just being able to enjoy those experiences, right? That's my definition of freedom, and that's what I pursue.
Great. Awesome. All right. Rapid fire questions.
Yes, sir.
What's the most influential book that you've read that's maybe really had the biggest impact on you or really changed your perspective on life?
I would say The Gap in the Game. And
Hardy.
For those who have not read it, the biggest concept is that we get so focused on how far we are away from the point on the horizon that we are looking to pursue, and that we get sad by that we forget to look backwards and see how far we've come from where we were, which is the game.
Yep. That's Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan.
Dan Sullivan,
Yes.
yeah.
Great,
That's right.
great
And
book.
and all of their books are great. 10X is greater than 2X is another great read. So
Yeah, those are all highly recommended from me as well.
yep.
Who are people that influence you, maybe online, that other people that really take up a lot of your mind space and you get a lot of good value from, that others should be knowing their work and following as well?
The one that I religiously every Thursday when his newsletter comes out make it a point to read is James Clear, who is the author of Atomic Habits, and his 3-2-1 newsletter that he puts out is it's a quick read, but it's also very enlightening in terms of 3 things that he thinks, 2 things that are quoted from other sources, and 1 question to consider as you continue on your merry way.
Yeah, I think the quote that the description of his newsletter is the most value per word on the internet, which I think is very fitting. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah,
Very good.
I'm good.
All right, and if you are a business owner struggling, overwhelmed, where can people find out more about you and your work, and all about Scott?
Yes. So 2 main places. First is our business website for Corvus Empowerment Solutions. The site is corvussolutions.co. Corvus is COR, V as in Victor, US. And just remember, it's .co, not .com. Okay? The other place is on LinkedIn. My main profile page is up there, and I put a whole bunch of content in terms of different themes, different topics, different ways that we're looking at things, and also some of the content from the podcast series that I host called The Corvus Effect. That is a weekly series where I interview great folks like you, Michael, and say, how are you pursuing your pursuit of freedom?
Awesome. We will make sure we link to all of those resources and everything else you mentioned on the program today. Scott, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom. Thank you for breaking work with me.
Happy to do it. Go break some more work, buddy.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you back here soon.
Yeah.